When I'm trying to synthesize a large quantity of data, I really like to start with your research objective and your business objective. So then when you start to get different pieces of data in, you can decide, is this an insight that's going to support your data or just a finding that could be used maybe to support an insight in the future, or maybe it's saved for later. So usually the things that are interesting but not as insightful to support your business objective, I kind of shove to the side for now because it gets too much data. The next kind of layer in is I start to hypothesize what are all the options, what are all the different stories that I potentially need to tell to solve my business objective. Once you have your different hypotheses out, I then start to layer in any studies that I know support those. And then when you start layering in your desk research, I often will either go to sources that I know are going to have the data. For example, if I'm maybe looking for population data, you can go to census data. Or what I'm finding now is I'm leaning first more to AI, where I'm either talking to it or typing it in my prompt and my objectives and all my thoughts. Like, don't worry about formatting it. Just tell it all the information that you need. And then I have it bring up different sources that can help find that data. And then with that, I may look to like Harvard Business School, or I may look to another academic journal. I may try to layer in other like desk research. And that helps create more buckets inside those insights of themes. And then the next kind of layer in is looking at any sort of like existing framework that I'm using. For example, like a jobs to be done framework, or maybe I'm looking at a behavioral model framework or some sort of existing framework that I can layer in the data, or I create my own. And then now that you have your framework and you have your hypotheses and potential data, you then can start to understand, does your data support your different hypotheses, or do you need to change the direction of your story? The hardest thing when you're synthesizing a large quantity of data is when you have too much data. And so trying to add structure and format is going to make it so much easier. And I just sometimes find it easier to create the structure first and then test out the different pieces of data to see what is the story. But at least you have a direction that you can start to consume and format the data in. And for me, that just helps. When I'm using AI, I often will also ask it to put the insights and sources in table format. So for me, again, that's easier for me to look at different sources. I also will sometimes ask AI to show me the pros and cons of maybe an insight, and so it can give me different sources that support either direction.